I mean, there's no sugarcoating that it's a tough way to make a living. You can do a lot of good things, but it's a tough way just to put enough money in the bank to know uh, that you can do this thing that you love with, um, you know, full security, right? There's always uncertainty.
This episode of Grounded in Maine is sponsored by ESG Review. ESG Review magazine is published quarterly in February, May, August, and November, and is available for free in print and digital formats. ESG Review is devoted to environmental, social, and governance strategies, technologies, and investments. ESGreview.net is updated every Wednesday with 8 new stories and is home to feature articles, news items, and more. Visit esgreview.net to stay informed and help us spark the collaboration and awareness needed to develop sustainable economies and communities around the world.
There's a place where there's no trouble, no more pain, no more struggle.
Grounded in Maine podcast is an open conversation about how we show up for the world. I started this podcast out of a desire to learn new ways to be sustainable because the word sustainability is big. It can be overwhelming, and I just wanted to learn, different ways to try to be part of the solution and not feel like it's too late. So I am talking to people who are doing different things and learning so much. I hope that you are too.
Hi there. Thank you so much for listening to Grounded in Maine today. My name is Amy Fagan. My guest today is Ben Whatley, and people in my area, the Brunswick, Maine area, might know him as one of our farmers. But if you don't live in the area, you probably have not heard of him. I love his story because he did not start out wanting to be a farmer, and he just has so much to say, and I love that. I have so much to say about Ben. I just love Ben. I think that farmers don't often get a lot of opportunities to speak. And so I'm thrilled to have given Ben the opportunity to do so. He has so much to say. He has so much knowledge to share. And he has a really interesting story, actually. So I'm thrilled to be able to share this with you guys. And I just want to start out by saying, I guess I haven't started out. I'm already halfway in. So I'm not starting out by saying, but I just want to add, do you guys know, have you seen the bumper sticker that says, "No farms, no food"? Right? Have you seen that? I love that bumper sticker. Like, if I was a bumper sticker person, I would need that bumper sticker, but I'm not a bumper sticker person. I don't put bumper stickers on my car. I have magnets on my car for my business, but because I can take them off. Anyway, I think that is profound, and I take that very seriously, and I don't know when that really happened for me. But I love that because food for us is it's different for all of us, but food is fuel, obviously, but food is also, for me, food is a more personal thing. Food is a love language for me. Cooking good food is a love language. I also have a business. I have a jam business, so I'm constantly cooking. I'm in the kitchen most of my life. And so food is very important to me. Good food is very important to me, like healthy food, local food, organic food, food that has been well prepared, food that is grown well and taken good care of. The farmers are so important to me personally. I get my fruit for my jam business from farmers. So very, very important to me. And so I definitely, you know, in my next chapter where I'm going to be moving, one of my priorities is to be near farms. I know some people want to be in the city where everything is exciting and everything is happening, but I want to be near farms. I want to be near farmers. I want to know farmers. I want to learn from farmers. I want to, you know, I want to have a CSA and get farm fresh food, all that stuff. And, you know, my interest in Farm Drop with Hannah Semler, who was just on the podcast recently, like all that stuff. I am obsessed with farms and good, healthy food and making sure that people get food because it's so important to all of us. We need food. We can't just not have food. So anyway, I met Ben a few years ago, 2020. I met him personally. I've known of him for a long time. I've probably run into him many times, but I met him in 2020. And he is, I don't even think I'm trying to remember. I don't think we even talked about it when we were having this conversation for the podcast. I have a lot of work to do. I have not edited this yet, but this was almost a 3-hour conversation, so I'm going to be whittling this down a lot. And know that the entire conversation is on YouTube because I don't have a video editor. So it's going to be 2.5 hours on YouTube. So you can hear the whole thing, which is very interesting. I just know a lot of people don't have the attention span to be able to listen to a 2.5 hour podcast. I know a lot of the time I don't, but I think he's fascinating. I think he has a lot of information to share. I just have to try to figure out how to shorten this so that it is still interesting and valuable. But we did not talk about the fact that he is also a musician. I mean, I think we did touch on it briefly, but he plays in bands as well. So he's a busy guy. He's super interesting. He's so nice. And he's fun. So I hope that you guys love this episode. If you do love it, I would really appreciate it if you shared it with somebody that you think would enjoy it. And if you haven't yet, I would love if you left a rating and possibly a review. I love that. Wherever you're listening, because it helps to get this in front of new listeners and it helps to make me look good. I'm not going to be mad about that. So I hope you love this again. And I'm going to get right to Ben because we got a lot of listening to do. Thank you so much for listening. Today, my guest is Ben Whatley. He is one of my favorite farmers locally, and Ben is a super fun guy. Ben is the head of Whatley Farm, and I'm trying to think of what I wanted to say about Whatley Farm. I want to just gush, and it's a little silly, but Whatley Farm is my favorite farm because they do bulk greens, which is my weakness. But Ben, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so thrilled to have you on the podcast.
Great. I'm happy to be here with you too, Amy.
But so Ben, you've been doing this for a long time, for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I'm technically not a beginning farmer anymore, according to, USDA, and that they only give you 10 years. And then we're at the next level of experience, which is not very experienced yet, but I think it's our 13th season. So
not very experienced.
No, not, when you look around and just see that, there are other farms with generational like depth, but also, there are people out there who have been doing it and getting better at it like for decades. I think of Gordon since somebody before we started, we were mentioning is some farmers who are passing it on to the next generation. So much more experience than us, but yeah, we're at the point where I guess we get called upon to mentor truly beginning farmers too. And have had a lot of people that have passed through our farm and worked there and then gone on to start their own farms and things too. So
That's awesome. I love that. That they stuck with it. That's gotta feel good. I mean, because
yeah,
I think of a lot of people that maybe work at farms. They're just like, it's something that I can do when I'm a teenager, and then or my
sure.
parents made me do it because they want the free produce. Um,
Well, we have had
or cheap or whatever.
oh, sure, yeah. I mean, yeah, I'd say we've had that too, and I think that we've had people that have gone on to do all kinds of other things too, or some people that have started in farming and food business and then and stopped, and gone on to do something different because I mean, there's no sugarcoating that it's a tough way to make a living. You can do a lot of good things, but it's a tough way just to put enough money in the bank to know uh, that you can do this thing that you love with, you know, full security, right? There's always uncertainty, and so I can understand too why somebody would uh, maybe decide not to be a commercial farmer after having the experience at working at our farm too. And I think of that as much a valuable experience as um, you know deciding that they just have to do it, right? Because there's a lot of ways to take that knowledge and put it into practice to you know um, achieve your goals. And it might not necessarily be financial. I mean, when I started, I know when I first started farming, I did an apprenticeship at Broadturn Farm, and I mean, I was really green. I had zero professional goals. It literally was 2008 when I had just graduated from college and was having, kind of a crisis of what do I do next, that I decided that I could go and be a Mafka farm apprentice to gain some skills that I might be able to use someday. I mean, like literally, I was just thinking of skills that I would use when I retired, but I was still planning on having just a regular career and getting a job. I just wasn't sure what it was going to be yet, you know?
Okay.
And so, like a lot of people, come to it that way too. And I really had no idea even uh, like how you could have a farm business necessarily. I don't think I really knew, much about it at all before I went to, you know, live live in a cabin on this farm. And at that time, it was before they were just a specialty like flour farm, and they had, family milk cow and pigs and ducks and all kinds of things. And uh, so, we you were either milking or picking flowers, but it was still very early in their stages, and more kind of like a homestead. So I was just really trying to connect to uh, kind of that radical homesteader vibe, that
Yeah.
as a uh, recently graduated college hippie just appealed to me. Be like, oh yeah, I can defer my student loans for a while and live in this cabin and just figure it out. Um, you know, super non-professional, but you get on the scene, start to, you know, uh, see that there's some more to it than you thought. and then I kind of just started running with it from there. Went and got some more experience, and did a farm incubator program down in North Carolina. But that was also like, I literally drove my truck down to North Carolina with a camper on the back, and that's as far as it made it. And I was just, I was out of money, and my camper broke down like in a Wendy's parking lot in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, but only like 5 miles from where my grandma lived. So I was just out of options. I had it towed over to her backyard, and got a job in town, and found this farm incubator program. I mean, you can see what I'm trying to paint a picture of. It's just like, it was very rambling hippie pursuit before I actually started Whatley Farm, and got a sense that that there really was like a high level sort of professional network of farmers who were really talking about how to be sustainable long term by making sure that farms were businesses that could pay people living wages, and striving towards something more professional than I had ever even imagined.
What was your degree in, Ben?
Yeah. So I majored in comparative literature and German, and I had a minor in Russian. I went to Oberlin College in Ohio, but I went there for 5 semesters over the course of 5 years. And then during that time, I also took time off from college, rode my bike across the country with groups twice, and went to Germany for a year, to the University of Hamburg for study abroad, and went to Russia for a semester. So it took me 5 years to finish, but like I said, I only, spent 5 semesters at the college. And, I think that if I was going to use my degree, then what I kind of realized toward the end of college was that, I kind of like wanted to, be a writer and translator, maybe, and like I could go to grad school or something, and be a teacher, be a professor in that field. But like really, the thing that I actually really connected with in literature was always like really more the subject and the spirit. Like I was getting more inspired by the art that I was encountering to just go out and live, and farming started to come into to my mind a little bit even then toward the end of college, but in a really like sort of silly romantic way, just reading like Tolstoy and that kind of thing. So I think that for me it was really just encountering the homesteading and organic gardening stuff through just like sort of just looking for people who were living on the land, and I don't know, just like a kind of new agrarian sort of ethic. It was just something I was really curious about, but I really just encountered it, like I said, just from kind of being a rambling college hippie, and traveling across the country a couple of times is when I sort of there was a college farm, and interestingly, I mean, I know, uh, a guy who, was worked at that college farm who then went to Maine and for sustainable ag and he's here in Maine farming and stuff. So, we got a little, like little glimpses into that stuff, towards the end of college. But yeah, it was probably mostly from traveling, but I just started seeing, oh, this is really cool. I want to learn, how to grow my own food and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. I
Yeah,
didn't
it was
know that
great.
you were a bike rider. That's so cool. Do you still ride?
Well, yeah, I mean, I love riding bikes. And I didn't do it, much for the first 10 years of farming at all. I've really kind of started to get back into it just since actually having kids. So, I mean, and
Now
not
I need
like
to run
they're
away.
I know, I mean, Edie's two, but like I've had her in a front seat on my fat bike. We go out, especially a lot, the uh, last winter, we go out around the farm and the fat bike and, I got a bike trailer. I mean, I guess I'm like, uh, for them, I'm kind of like an early adopter. Like uh, as soon as I can get them into the appropriate seat for the bike, then, I want to get out there with them. So, like, I mean, yeah, I love riding. Last summer, I joined up with the local club too, the Merry Meeting Wheelers out of
Hmm.
Brunswick, and went out on some rides, and uh, I would like to do a lot more of it. And who knows, maybe someday, if my kids are into it, we'll do a little more bike touring, because
Nice.
it's the funnest way to travel, I think.
Well, zero fuel, and you get to see everything, and you get
Yeah.
exercise. And, if your butt can handle it, mine cannot,
Mm.
then you can go far. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's something fun to do together. Um, but that's really cool. And I didn't know all those things that you did. I mean, the German and Russian, my goodness. Um, that
Yeah.
is
And that all, it's all been kind of, I don't know if random is the right word, but I mean, like I took Spanish in middle school and at some point just switched to German because I heard the teacher was fun, in the 10th grade. So then I had a German exchange student. So then I was like, oh well, oh I guess I could go live with your family in Germany. I didn't really know German because I just started the year before, and the
right.
teacher was a lot of fun, but not very good at teaching German, like so I just like, yeah, so I went over there just to have an experience, and then you live in a place for a year. You get the hang of it, and so then even in college, I mean, I entered into it speaking a lot of German because I'd just been speaking it, for a year. So, uh, I got a major pretty easily because I just started in senior classes because I was mostly fluent in German or whatever. But the comparative literature is kind of like, I mean, I always liked to read, and that is a little bit like, uh, that was kind of like a world literature type of major. There was, uh, I could do translation. I could, try to learn some Russian, but you just read uh, a lot of other books from around the world. So I don't know, it all really just started from that, that I was, really curious about the world and wanted to travel. And, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I wish that I had done, even some more of that before I was 25 and before I started doing, farm work. Not, no regrets, but, uh, that farming, just once you set down some roots, it really, it locks you into some commitments, that I'm going to have to defer, that bike touring until my kids are my excuse. You know what I mean? Because right now, the demands of running a farm, time demands and all that are too high. So, but someday we'll have a lot more adventures.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe you'll have some cool helpers that will be able to take some stuff on and give you a break. But...
Well, I mean, I have amazing helpers who are really cool now, who are taking a lot on, and they give me plenty of breaks, but I'm mostly using that to parent, so which is great, because that's what's in demand right now, and so I'm fulfilled by that and satisfied by that. But I do like the idea of thinking, okay, I'll have some obligations to my teenage kids if they'll
they'll want to hang out with me.
If they want to hang out with me, then I can go take them and canoe the Allagash, and we can go hike the 100-mile wilderness, or do things that
or travel the world, or
hey,
see another country
on a bike. Yeah,
for sure. Wow. But so I guess I always assumed that Whatley Farm that you grew up on Whatley Farm, but you started Whatley Farm.
So I grew up on the land, which is right up the hill from where I live now, which is where I live now is just like a little bit of a farm satellite. Like, it's a little bit of a farm expansion, right? It's down the hill from the main farm, and we have one field here, but most of our growing is up there, and most of our buildings and everything down here. We really just have this one field and our house, which is mine and my partners and our kids, in our house. And my parents' house has the main farm infrastructure and stuff. But when I was growing up there, it wasn't called Whatley Farm. It was, there was nothing official there. My parents had, in the early 80s, operated a market garden and an egg business. They actually had like 1,200 laying hens. It was pretty serious for a few years, but that was before I was born, and like the year I was born. And then, at the end of that season, I mean, they've been doing all kinds of other work too. My dad was learning masonry, and so he was starting to do that those jobs a lot to pay the bills, and it was just too crazy. I think that it was 1984. I mean, the 80s were not a good time to be an organic farm, especially. I've been
not
told
cool.
by
not
cool at all. So, even told by other people than my parents who were around then, like, yeah, that starting a farm in the early 80s, it was really hard. It was almost like, organic was kind of a dirty word, in that people in the marketplace might pick up a head of lettuce and ask, is it organic? And these days, that they want the answer to be yes. But back then it was, if you said yes,
it's like dirty.
Well, dirty, worms in it, whatever, so, that was a tough time. But my parents kind of started into it, and then my dad, really ran with the masonry and stonework business, and has done that for several decades, but grew that into a business that's now employee owned in Topsom, and he's no longer an owner of it. So he is retired from that, and but that business that has its own shop now, it used to be at our house. It actually, our vegetable barn, the main bones of our wash and pack shed, and the farm barn was the stone cutting shop. So, we have adapted, for instance, like, where we wash vegetables is actually where the saw used to be, and they used to saw granite, so it was wet, has some drainage
That's the
in the
one that's
floor.
right behind the house, not the one that has the seedlings.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, um, you know, we, but when we started out with the farm, what we basically had was, there was land that my parents had grown on, but hadn't mowed in, you know, 30 years or 25 years, because, when we were growing up, we weren't really, doing any farming in the back. It was like we had a, garden in the backyard. We had some chickens and stuff, but, there was just pallets of stone everywhere, rocks, slab scraps, you name it. Like, my dad had a bobcat, and they could fork that stuff around in a bucket, whatever. But mostly, like, our biggest thing that we had to do first of all was just get all of this stone out of the field. And this is like, we have almost no natural rocks in our field, only the ones that we just put there because you're saving them. And what else are you going to do with scrap rock? So where we have our big greenhouses now was all filled up with stone. And there also there was a big chicken barn. So this is like a 200.
Yeah, for 1,200 hens. Holy moly.
No, but even before that, see, the thing is, my parents, they had actually just come to this place. So my parents moved there in 82. It was a foreclosed poultry farm that had been owned by, I think it was called the Hillcrest Poultry Company in Boston, and run by tenant farmers, essentially, right? Or people that like lived in the old farmhouse, but that like had no indoor plumbing and no septic, and there was just like a dug well. It was for the, when you look at Topsom now, you're like, how could that ever have been in Topsom? But that was before Topsom had all the, the development, commercial development and stuff. So it was just like pretty rough living out there. And so there was one of these big metal barns that would hold like 40,000 broilers, this type of place there, that my parents, they got their 1,200 hens, but they just ran around everywhere, and it was like not really like a laying hen barn or anything. But so that had been needed to be torn down when I was a kid, but the foundation had never been dug out of the ground or anything. So we did a major project, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years into the farming, with some grant funding to like dig it all up and sort of do a sifting through, right, of all of that land in order to build some greenhouses there. That's not the main part of our growing area. The fields in the back just needed to be to have trees cleared that had grown up there in the past 25 years, and mowed and plowed and cover cropped, and pretty much after a couple of years we were off and running there. But yeah, the front area, we even had some dynamiting. It was did some blasting, not ourselves, obviously. You can get the professionals in there to do that. But in the phases where we initially just built up the kind of basic necessary infrastructure, we were really, really active, doing a lot of projects. Like, I think of like now the last couple of years, luckily, we weren't having kids at the same time as trying to do those kinds of things. Because, I have to say, like, we haven't really done any major building projects in the last couple of years. Right. And thank goodness, right? That we're just like, well, we're just farming, because there's a while there. when you build a new greenhouse or something, like there's certain parts of it you have to do during the growing season, that's so there's just no way around that that you have to do site work and all that stuff, before the ground freezes, and then you can get out there
Right.
when the weather's like this and stand up on a ladder and freeze your butt off, and but it's really hard to hold the screws in the right place, as anybody who works in that in industry, outdoor construction or anything knows,
Right.
that, like, so I'm just glad that right now we aren't out there trying to do any major building, and we're just growing some kids and trying to grow some crops.
That's cool. I'm so impressed that you said that it's the Maine farm you said had been growing up for like 25 years, and there were trees and
Yeah.
rocks and all kinds of stuff. You just like cleared it and then put some cover crops, and like 2 years later you were growing and it was fine.
Well, yes, but also we
You composted like crazy. Like,
oh yeah, I mean, for sure, we our early applications of compost, especially, were definitely really high, and a lot of other rock powders and stuff that we now don't need to apply, because the soil there, of course, was just like any soil in Maine, was really poor in calcium, so you need to put a lot of lime in, and most of the you're even potassium, so like granite dust, things like that. So no, we did a lot of soil balancing at the same time, but we soil tested before we did that stuff first. We had pretty good, I kind of knew the best practices already from working on other farms and from getting that education through MAFCA. So we did a good job of cover cropping that first year, and actually had, so our first year of Whatley Farm, after coming out of a year of just awesome cover cropping, we had the best crops. I mean, it was really high quality. 1 acre was just awesome. And the next few years we kind of rapidly expanded and struggled to ever achieve anything like we had that first year, for the next few years, partly because, well, we're doing more crops, more acres, and all that. I mean, so we went from 1 acre to maybe 5 years later. I can't remember the exact year after starting the farm, but it's just a few years later where we planted 7. But we had a lot of crop failures because we had even expanded beyond what we could irrigate or fence. We were, a lot of those acres were kind of speculative, or kind of rolling the dice and just hoping that we would get rain and all this.
Right.
But, we had drought for a few years, so I think at the end of that year I just added it up and was like, okay, what did we actually harvest when you subtract all of the crop failures because of deer or
drought,
so that, and I figured that was only about 4. So then the next year we planted 4 acres, and it's always, just since then, it's been, we actually now, last year we planted like 3, and this year it's looking like 2 3/4, right? Because it's just every year we look at, like, okay, well, this year was so wet that we had crop failures because we were planted in beds that were kind of marginal and were oversaturated, right? So it's not to say that, okay, maybe next year will be a drought and maybe some stuff will do great in those beds, but we can't actually afford to take those kind of risks if we have the choice to.
Right.
Like, I mean, it's just so, we tried to just, I guess, say like,
So you're saying if you
every,
like plant less, if you plant less, you lose less.
well, yeah, but also by even just taking that quarter acre that was kind of marginal and saying, well, maybe in a drought year it would do great, but if it's wet, it's a loss. Then we cut that out. We're just reducing our risk. The other thing is that we contracted from the 7 down to 4 that we could fence and irrigate and invested like heavily in that,
Right.
right? Well, we don't have anything on the farm now that anything planted that I worry about a deer eating. That's just like, I can't remember when we built the fence exactly, but somewhere around 5 years ago. So like the biggest source of my heartache and
Mm,
anxiety is a thing of the past there. Now it doesn't mean we have to, you have to stay vigilant, but not that vigilant. We just have an 8-foot fence and the posts are 2 feet higher than that. So if we get deer from the 5% of deer that will jump over an this is
right.
what I hear, they'll jump over an 8-foot fence, then we're putting 2 more feet up and then we're going to sleep, we're going to rest easy at night. There are things that are like, that are, I think, sort of considered to be like normal parts of the farmer gardener, like pathos, uh, like that we're always worrying about. That I would tell, uh, I would say, like you can't afford to worry about that, or don't do that to yourself. Like, God, I mean,
Yes.
plant stuff and then I used to like,
Leave it to chance.
yeah, well, or I'd be sitting in a tree stand,
Oh gosh.
and like falling asleep because it's like dusk. I've been working all day and I'm just
Right.
looking to try and pick off the deer, but they don't come until after dark or whatever, you know
Right.
what I mean? And the other thing is that for vegetable crops, hunting, in most cases is probably not enough. I mean, we used to have friends that hunted, there might be 10 or 12 deer, taken
Mm.
from the general area of woods that we know of from neighbors and friends. And, uh, but then, on Thanksgiving Day, there's still like, I don't know, 12 that show up at our field and are eating all the parsnips, that we're trying to sweeten up. So yeah, there's things that like, uh, the other thing is that, um, about water, right? Is that, we also decided that we just could not risk, um, planting something and putting work into it and having it die from drought. And now we're just learning that the excessive moisture, it is just as important because we had a lot of losses this year.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh, yes.
right? Yeah. But that is much harder to deal with, I think.
I
Like,
was
I
gonna
mean,
ask about that. This year was dumb.
yeah, I mean, you have to have raised beds and you have to have uh, good drainage. And so some places, the uh, even having high raised beds, and for us, high is like, 8 inches or something. Because, when you're forming a raised bed without any framing around it, like if you just have raised beds out in the field, maybe with wood chips in between it or straw or something, like there's only so high you can go. And otherwise, it's just,
Just gonna flatten.
falls
Right.
apart. It's like building a sandcastle or something. So even with a lot of good soil structure, like, we'll go, that's like the highest raised bed. Most of what we do, I mean, we like it to not be very high because it's a lot easier to work around. I mean, my favorite is actually a raised bed that's then been filled in with mulch so much that it's just flat, right? And I'm like, oh, you're working on the flat like that. That's how I like to garden. because your tools, move in through there. You can step across it. It's just like a lot easier to work in. But like, most of our raised beds are like 4 inches high. So we can't actually plant in places that have just soil types that hold too much moisture, if there's too much clay, or which is a lot of our farm is. And that's kind of what we're like this year on our crop plan. We just sort of like, okay, those 3 beds, right? Okay, let's axe those. Let's just plant those back to grass, right? So that we don't have to worry about, because it's just like you're losing your shirt,
right?
Like weeding something that then isn't going to yield or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you've got all those other acres, all that other space. You could just build something else up, or use another space that might be a little bit safer. It's just so hard to know from one year to the next. Is it going to be dry? Is it going to be wet?
Yeah.
How can you prepare for that?
Yeah, and I think that that we're really have decided that we have to be prepared for, I don't know. I mean, we're probably prepared for the worst of the worst. And I don't think there's any reason to think that that any of these recent historic storms are going to be called historic like the next time they happen. It's pretty much like, okay, it's, that's like, it's all just playing out, according to the science of, stronger storms and stuff. So that's, we did a drainage project this year. There's, our field access roads, that's another thing that, about having the farm is like, to go to markets on certain day and sell crops on certain days, you really have to be able to just get there, and just like, drive your truck there. And access roads. So, we're doing culverts and burying subsurface drainage around field edges and things this year. And there was a window, it was in September, where it was like, beautiful weather, and it was actually dry for a while. And so
I think there were a couple of weeks when it didn't actually rain.
Yeah. So that was when we, had our friend who's an excavation contractor, in there with his equipment and helping us dig like crazy to just try and fix things up. I'm really glad that we did, because we didn't do too bad. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but it was a big improvement, when we saw those rains like on December 19th and all that just crazy stuff. Well, I say crazy. How about we just start saying it's like that it's just a strong storm, and it's just happening more often and stronger, right? So you got to be ready for that. And I mean, wind, like, there's high tunnels, which are greenhouses, things that are really important tools for making your garden more resilient to climate change, and being able to, it's like, well, they're, I think really helpful to us to deal with changing weather, and so like we have a much more, I don't know, we can have a more predictable planting season by having some protection for crops and all that. But it's a piece of infrastructure that, wow, is really not made for a hurricane.
Yeah.
And we're starting to like push some of the wind speeds are, kind of pushing it. So we have to build those, kind of overbuild them.
For sure.
And still, people, people have damage for sure. I mean, our compost supplier, Living Acres, up in New Sharon, is our potting soil supplier, I should say, mainly. I mean, he's a composter who makes potting soil, but he makes really high quality compost, and their barn, just like, I mean, the roof, this is what, covers, all their piles and equipment for, making this stuff. I mean, that during that storm, because they were like right in the heart of Western Maine, just heavy rain and, 70-mile-an-hour winds, like it ripped the roof off. And, I know other people that had infrastructure damage just from wind on farms.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, there's so much more to farming than people, I think, really consider going in.
I had to plug in my computer. Sorry, the little glitch there. No. Listen, if you want to focus me, please help me, because I am like a notorious rambler. Ask anybody who works on our farm, like just like keeping me on task.
Yeah.
I've been talking like nonstop, since I was 2 years old.
This is fascinating, though. I mean, I really, it's good information, because farming, it sounds, I mean, to me, it seems like, well, it doesn't seem very attractive to me, because I hate summer. But the whole idea of growing your own food, and how hard can it be? You put seeds in the ground, and then you grow food, and then people give you money for that food, right? But there's like, it sounds all romantic, but it's not. There's so much more to it, and people don't realize that. If you're going to make a business out of it, there's like a lot.
There, yes, and I think you probably could keep it simple to a certain degree. A lot of times we're asking ourselves, like, okay, have we made this too complicated? Are we growing too many crops? Are we marketing for too many weeks of the year? You think of some very simple and beautiful businesses which could be good careers for people in farming, that might operate only for certain months of the year, and then not require certain infrastructure, which we've had to build to go year round. I mean, just winterizing buildings to keep water to wash greens on when it's below freezing for, I don't know, 6 days in a row or something. I mean, it's like, you just, like, I think, they're all good things, but I would say the typical, like, year-round vegetable farm that you're seeing out there right now is very complicated, and we might have made it extra complicated on ourselves by responding to I mean, there's demand for crops year round, but also I think, a lot of people are, like, as farmers, are maybe curious about pushing the boundaries, but also, just committed to this strengthening the local food movement in a way that we haven't necessarily all approached it from, okay, I got to have boundaries on this thing. I got to have limits. I've got to farm, seasonally. Yeah. Those are all, really viable, potentially could be really good ways for people to farm without, without a large infrastructure investment or sort of continuous reinvestment, but when you go year round in a climate that's not really, super amenable to it.
Right. That's such an interesting thought because I mean, sure, eating seasonally, would have you really eating potatoes all winter, right?
Well,
Potatoes
yeah.
and squash and stuff, but but at the same time, like there is nothing better. For me, like there's nothing better than like Swiss chard or spinach.
Mm,
We have spinach every single morning.
yeah.
And nothing's better than Whatley Farm spinach
Thank you.
in the morning. So, to go to the farmers market and see those big bins, because folks, if you have not been to our farmers market, you really need to come to our Brunswick farmers market, because Whatley Farm has bulk greens, so you can bring your own bag and put as much as you want. You can buy as much as you want by the pound. And you said it's 5 different crops. So you've got spinach, and you've got arugula, you've got spicy greens, and
Kale and lettuce mainly.
lettuce.
And, every once in a while, we can throw something else in there in bulk that, we're trying. We have mosh right now, which is, it's related to valerian. It's really like a cultivated weed. It has a really interesting taste that's kind of sweet and nutty, and it's kind of like it tastes really good with beets as one thing. It's really tasty that way, but it's like a cold weather specialist crop, and it has a lot of mosh is the French name, but it's called Feldsalat in German, or just field lettuce basically is what that means, because it grew in winter grain fields in like more temperate climates, like in England and northern Europe. It would be in just a weed in a field of wheat, for example. So English it's called corn.
Is it a very dry texture? I think I had some. I think I tried
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it is relatively dry. It's not like that juicy. It's like and they have these little rosettes that are kind of like mini heads of lettuce that you can dress, and then I like eat it with a knife and a fork. Just kind of cut those rosettes up, and so we have some of that bulk right now, and we've sold some bulk Asian greens of other types a little bit that we just trialed this year. So it's a direction that we are wanting to go in. We had, like most farms for a long time, just sold loose root crops, right? You sell loose carrots and beets and potatoes and all that stuff that people don't have to buy a certain amount in a bag.
Mm-hmm.
But that wasn't the norm for greens. We tried to start doing this right before COVID, and we did it for about 2 weeks at the winter market. And then that really, the market shut down. And when we came back from just, the sanitation standpoint and everything, it didn't really make sense to do. So we didn't start doing it again until things had kind of gone back to normal. And we've been doing it for a couple of years now. And it's turned into kind of a sensation, and a thing that we're really trying to grow more. The way things stand now, it could not really replace all of our green sales. We just don't have you don't have the room, to do that in such a compressed time period of like 3.5 hours. So, we still have grab and go bags of greens, but we're really proud of the fact that a person can come to the market and get just about anything that we sell and not have to take a plastic bag. And, I don't know if that if it'll catch on more, with other farms. Like in my networks, I talk to other growers in different parts of the state, that they ask, hey, what are those tubs you had on Instagram, that you put your greens in? And I'll tell them what they are. And, the other people are going out and trying it and stuff. But it takes more work. I mean, like I'm not going to lie, right? There's more setup, there's more cost to us to go that route, even though it seems like, oh, that would be easier than
Right.
putting it in the bag. There's a certain efficiency to, I mean, we put the greens in bags like really fast just because we've been doing, we're doing it
Yeah,
for a
yeah.
long time. And, and, and it doesn't require, the same kind of, crowd management and what have you that the bulk can sometimes. So, but that I wouldn't discourage anybody from doing it for that reason. But just at farmers market, space is money. Also, in the sense, I mean, we rent double space at most of our markets, and so you're paying more there, and it takes a little certain amount of just management to keep everything clean and tidy, as opposed to just when you've got a bag that somebody can just grab, then you just open up another bin and throw some more bags out there, but it's a thing that we're committed to, and that we're always trying to grow and to make sure that that we keep growing it and just try and see where the ceiling is, or push, where that is, and to do it consistently. Although, there have been times where we just don't have any greens, like Amy for this weekend. I mean, we still have a good amount of spinach, although less, because this is the time of the year where it's not growing, so it's a little bit like I have this refrigerator, it's like 5,000 square feet of spinach in the ground under double row covers in a double plastic covered greenhouse. It's all attached to the plant. And right now it's just, okay, how much of it do we want to pick this week, and which leaves are we going to leave next week? They'll be exactly the same size next week.
Right. Not a lot of growth.
So it's, that we're in it's the dark time, I guess you could say,
for sure.
Until about mid-February. So
just a few weeks.
Yeah.
We'll make it. We'll figure it out. But do you have any idea? I love to go whenever I go to the market. I love the blackboard where you sort of keep track of how many bags have been saved.
Oh yeah. Well,
and I know it's an estimate.
Yeah. We actually, we stopped updating that number, and the reason was that there was this is kind of it wasn't just because we got too busy or got lazy. It was because I started feeling like it was maybe congratulating people a little bit too much. Not the really dedicated people who were bringing their own bags, but because we still had bags available that people could take, we were still buying plastic bags on a roll, and people were taking them and filling up greens that were bulk with it and everything. And I just said, like, okay, we were, I don't know, we were one season into it, and we estimated that we had saved 8,700 something bags or something. But I was like, well, should I subtract the the bags that we are still using, bags that I just bought from that? It just kind of became a thing. Like, I was like, maybe the tally was just a little, having it there, I thought might be just giving like a sense of complacency, if I don't know if that's the right word, but we just sort of felt like we didn't have as much confidence in it being the right message anymore. We actually wanted to replace it with the message of like, just please remember to bring your own bags, and to not make such a big deal out of what we were maybe the bags that were avoiding being used there. Yeah, I gotcha.
That's valid. I hear
So
that.
we still, yeah, it was like, I don't know, it was probably about midsummer sometime, but also that was, it's the kind of decision that you make when you're just like, hot and tired and stuff anyways. And, it came up at a morning meeting, be like, yeah, so about the bags, people are taking plastic bags off the roll and putting greens in them. So like, does this make sense? I was like, well, nah, maybe we should just,
Ah, well, I
yeah,
mean,
it's
whatever it is. I mean, I
yeah,
love to be able to bring my own bag and just stuff it full of spinach or, arugula or whatever, and just like I have my own bag. I brought my own
yeah,
bag and I filled it, and it's not like, yay me, but it's just like, ooh, I just saved plastic, and here, like, I I don't know. It's something, it just
yeah.
feels really good to be able to do that.
Yeah. And, I think like most people, who are doing it, like, they know why they're doing it and they're trying to do a good thing and show other people that
Yeah.
they can also,
You
uh,
don't necessarily need a party.
well, hey, I mean, it's, yeah, the greens is a party. I mean, it's like, you know, it, the line for our greens is maybe like, the line to get into like a really hot club or something like, who you're going to meet there, you know,
Uh,
uh,
I don't know when the
it's
last time you were in line at a
who's
hot
who.
club.
Well, I was in line. I remember as a farmer, like early on, I went with some friends. I was in line at Oasis down on, oh, I don't know, it's a club down in Portland, right? I don't know if it's still there, but it had a light up dance floor and stuff. But I was still just kind of, just dirty farmer, and and I waited in the line all the way until I got to the front, and I was about to be checked to see if they would let me in to this club, and then I just ducked the rope and didn't go in. I
You
didn't
know
take
what?
a chance.
I'm really
Yeah,
tired.
yeah. I was like, no, I'll meet you guys after. So Amy, it may be that I've never really been to that kind of a club,
I've never really been to that kind of club either.
but yeah.
But you've had the experience of waiting in line at a
Yes,
hot
yes,
club. Um,
yeah,
so I did want to ask about beneficial insects, because I remember
yes, yeah.
a post about that last year, and that kind of blew my mind because I've never had that experience.
Mhm.
And I would love to learn more about that.
Yeah. Well, I can say that 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 all the solutions that we've found uh, for employing beneficial insects on our farm really came out of specific problems that arose uh, mostly once we started having some crops growing year round, even not in heated greenhouses, but just you've got soil and you've got uh, plants that are alive in there all year round, and you don't have a freeze out period. Uh, those crops uh, support populations of pests, right? And so we never had aphids until we had greenhouses uh, year round, and then all of a sudden we had aphids, and that was the first thing that kind of just uh, drove us to find some solution. God, any solution. But of course, it turns out that we weren't the first ones to have the problem. It was just we had only just built our greenhouses a couple of years before that. So uh, that all the solutions that we use are all amazingly like readily available. Like we have a supplier. In a sense, we have a lab in New York State that's called IPM Labs, Integrated Pest Management, and this actually reminds me that this is the time of the year
It's
where
time to order.
I'm like, yes, I'm literally writing this down right now that I need to reach out to Carol, and I need to, before I do that, have just looked at our schedule and decided changes, we could make to it. But basically we started, they have all these programs essentially, right? They'll say, okay, you've got aphids. What species of aphid do you have? Send us some in a plastic bag, through the mail, and then we'll tell you what species.
Oh, okay. So you don't have to tell them what kind of aphids.
No, not even necessarily,
Okay.
I mean, we, have gotten maybe a little bit better at diagnosing insects and stuff. I got a hand lens and, look at them magnified and that kind of thing, because you have to. But, at first they insisted on me sending it to them because they say a lot of people, aphids are so small, that, that it won't do any good if you are with beneficial insects, especially if you've got a different species than you think that you have of pest. It's just all very specific. So with the aphids, that was our first foray into beneficial insects, essentially scheduling a importation of them, right? Like a shipment from their lab where they're growing, and maintaining these populations to a greenhouse, right? In the late winter, early spring, when we're starting up, we will, even before we know we have aphids, we just know we're going to have them sometime. We know we're going to have aphids, for example, in April in our greenhouses. So in February, when we start up, we will import first some aphids of a different species from this lab, so that we can start growing our food source for the predators that we're going to introduce.
Oh, so like bait.
To make sure that our populations of predators thrive and reproduce and all the rest, we have to have food for them all the time. So, we literally have, it's called a bug dorm, but it's just a little, you know what I mean? It's a tent that you can, reach your hand in there and, do work. And, you might have, I could just picture this is like what a kid who is really into biology or something might have, it's like an ant farm or something, but, it has this really, really fine mesh, so that these tiny predator wasps, can't get in there and kill all of our aphids, because we're raising more and we're raising food for them too. So this is a type of aphid. I know it's crazy, but so we're buying these aphids in that eat grass and grains, and we're growing barley. It's like cat grass. We have these pots, that are growing like cat grass, that are just covered. They look terrible, right? They're just infested with these aphids.
Oh my gosh.
I know, we take them and we put them out throughout the greenhouses. We've just kind of gotten into a schedule of, we always take half of them out that are covered in aphids, and then we put half fresh plants in there. Then they all get infested and we rotate them through. And so then we've got food for our predators everywhere. They're just, well, I say buzzing around. You can't really hear them doing. They're very small. They're just like these little wasps, these two tiny little, antennae, and they just go and get the aphids. They seek them out. So
pick them off.
We were having
wow.
When we first started having problems with aphids, it was so bad that we would just have lettuces that we couldn't sell. You couldn't wash that many aphids off of it. There was just no way. It can be so bad, especially, I would say that was, right after we built the greenhouses. So I think that the soil health was not in balance yet. We were seeing that in soil tests too. So that, it is said generally, right, that pests attack crops more that have nutrient deficiencies and are just not as healthy and vigorous. So, it's that, may have gotten a little bit easier to grow crops that aren't totally devastated by, aphids since then. But like now we're importing those predatory wasps. I mean, and they send you just, it's like 500 in a little pill bottle type of thing, and we have these schedules. I forget how many shipments we have now, because we've expanded into a lot of other ones, so we've got Aureus, which is a species that we bring in for thrips. We're getting lacewings. You get these little strips of cardstock that have lacewing eggs kind of like glued onto them, and so there's I don't know, 100 eggs on a little card, and they're all on a sheet that's perforated. So it's like they send you a piece of paper in the mail in a insulated envelope.
And then those eggs hatch and...
Oh, yeah. And we're, so we go hang those up all over our greenhouses. It's just like routine. On Wednesdays during the greenhouse season, we're getting these shipments. So it's like, it's nothing that we had to like come up with on our own at all. You just have to, in a way, like, I don't know. I heard about it from another farm at first. Hey, this is what we do, and, talk to IPM Labs. And then we just keep talking to them about, about what problems we have and whether they have any solutions. There's a lot of information on the internet, but I then usually just call them and say, what can we do about this? What do you have? And they know, that's like,
that's their thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, and we were like, we'll also release a lot of ladybugs when we can, but along with the lacewings is a more, I would say, for people who are, say, want just generalist predators that will go after pests primarily. Like lacewings are really good, and it is, in a way, it's a lot easier to get them because ladybugs are harvested and sold live adults, right? So, and it, so you can order a bag of ladybugs on Amazon.com. This is a real, is a thing. I've done it a number of times when we were desperate for like an immediate solution, but and it's cool. Then you get a cloth bag and it's crawling with ladybugs, and you just go, they'll kind of shake it along the ground in your greenhouses, and it's more necessary to do, though. I think most people who are gardening outside don't really have to do any of these things because you've got a lot of insects active. Whereas in greenhouses, it's a really artificial environment when you're trying to grow crops in April and it's just freezing outside. And if you just got nothing going on yet,
Right.
I just want to take a moment and thank my guest again for speaking with me and sharing such great information. I also need to thank Buzzsprout for hosting this podcast, for Jane Bolduck and her amazing music genius, for Becca Coffron and her beautiful artwork. And I'd like to thank you for listening. Please check out the show notes. I'm going to have links posted in there if you would like to follow this guest and learn more about them. Thank you again. We'll talk to you soon.
There'll come a day, my mama told me, when I find love to have have and hold me. A heart that's strong and so sincere. Just tell me, how do I get there from here? Oh, tell me, how do I get there from here? 'Cause here and now I'm so far down that mercy's bound to find me. We'll find a way to soothe the sickness. We'll heal the hate with sweet forgiveness. Wages of war will disappear. Just tell me, how do I get there from here? I wonder, how do I get there from here? Yeah, 'cause here and now I'm so far down that mercy's bound to find me. When that state of grace has finally found me, well, there'll be music, ooh, and good friends around me, yeah, yeah. And I'll just smile through happy tears and wonder,